2024 is shaping up to be the year of labor, with the American worker taking center stage in the presidential race. A recent survey found that 8 in 10 voters want lawmakers to invest more in pro-worker policies like paid leave and the child tax credit. And as both campaigns compete for the blue-collar vote, the 2024 race could well be decided by America's working class. So how do the blue and red tickets stack up on labor issues? One thing is clear. The U.S. falls significantly short of other wealthy nations in supporting its workers. It remains an outlier by not providing worker protections like federal paid family leave. The U.S. allocates just 0.6% of its GDP to family benefits, on par with Mexico and Turkey. In contrast, the United Kingdom spends 4 times as much. Democratic frontrunner Kamala Harris's economic platform would bring America closer to these basic global standards, including paid family leave and a $6,000 child tax credit. Her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, was chosen in part for his strong track record on workers' rights. Under his leadership, Minnesota enacted several worker-friendly policies, including 12 weeks of paid leave and a $1,750 child tax credit. Minnesota today ranks as one of the best states for workers, and this support is mirrored in the health of its businesses. Minnesota's strong labor market practices place it in the 6th category, the 6th highest in the nation for business, according to a CNBC report published last month. Under Walz, the Minnesota model shows how robust workers' protections can boost a company's competitiveness and the broader state economy. On the GOP side, paid leave gets 0 mention in the Trump-Vance platform. On expanding the child tax credit, Trump said he would consider it, but stopped short of actually committing to it. Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, has proposed expanding the child tax credit, but when it came time to actually vote for one, he was notably missing in action. Earlier this month, the self-described pro-family candidate conveniently missed a vote for a bill that included a much narrower expansion of the child tax credit. On the issue of wages, Harris supports an increase in the national minimum wage, which has been stagnant at $7.25 an hour for over a decade. By the way, that's under $15,000 a year if you only work one job. Trump, on the other hand, has claimed that raising the minimum wage would hurt small businesses. But a CNBC survey earlier this year found that 61% of small business owners support raising their state's minimum wage. On labor unions, the blue ticket sees strong support thanks to President Biden's staunchly pro-union platform. Biden, if you recall, became the first ever president to join a picket line when he visited striking auto workers in Michigan last year. In contrast, Trump has a long history of opposing unions. He's been accused of stiffing his own employees. Under his first term, he signed a series of executive orders that decimated union influence. Biden rescinded these orders when he took office. Recently, Trump made comments that seemed to praise Elon Musk for allegedly firing striking workers, leading to an unfair labor practice charge from the United Auto Workers Union. The difference between the two campaign tickets is clear. One demonstrates a consistent record of empowering American workers and has the backing of a majority of labor unions. And it's not the pair involving the convicted real estate tycoon and the Silicon Valley investor who's backed by the tech billionaire class. Joining me now to discuss the role of labor in the 2024 race is Tom Perez, senior advisor to President Biden, former United States Labor Secretary under President Obama. He joins us today, though, in his personal capacity, just happens to be one that has lots of experience with these things. Secretary Perez, good to see you. Thanks for being with us. I want to start by talking about something we didn't just mention here, but Donald Trump was talking about last night. He was talking about across-the-board tariffs on imported goods, and he said something interesting. He said, we don't pay for those tariffs. Those countries pay for those tariffs, except tariffs make things more expensive, and then you pay for it as consumers. It's an unsophisticated approach. If you're trying to get more things made in America, I totally understand that. Donald Trump's way of doing it is actually just going to lead to more inflation.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, and don't take my word for it. Talk to all the economists who say the same thing, Ali. And what you've seen with President Biden and Vice President Harris is insourcing. Go to Phoenix and you see chip manufacturing, not one, but 2 major anchors in chip manufacturing. We're bringing those jobs back home. You look at the clean energy economy and you see, the vice president, the president, with a real commitment to building a supply chain so that we're making the component parts for electric vehicles here in the United States. putting putting people to work, by the way, in union jobs. The commitment of the vice president, the For the People and For the Future agenda, is about making sure we meet people where we are, and we incentivize unionization. And that has worked over the last 3.5 years, and the vice president is going to continue to turbocharge those efforts. And you mentioned paid leave. We're the only industrialized nation on the planet that doesn't have some form of paid leave at a federal level. And you got to meet workers where they are. The reason why what Governor Walz did in Minnesota and what roughly a dozen other governors have done across the country, the reason they do that is you talk to employers, Allie, and one of the biggest costs they have is the cost of attrition. You're making choices if you don't have paid leave. I'm going to stay home. You're leaving the workplace. Countries that have paid leave have much better labor force participation, especially among women. And so that's what the vice president is about. It's about making sure we give opportunities for people. The child care tax credit, paid leave. It's time to do this. And states have demonstrated that it can be done, but now we need to do it at the federal level, because you shouldn't have to win the geographic lottery to have access to paid leave in this country. And that's why I love the agenda of the vice president. Her vision is about making sure that everybody has that opportunity to compete and that we meet people where they are. The cost of child care is so expensive, and we're taking steps under the vice president's leadership and Governor Walz's leadership to address those concerns.
Wages are one issue. Wages have been going up in the last few years, and we should deal with the federal minimum wage. It's ridiculous at $7.25. But ultimately, creating less inequality is a matter of wages, benefits, health care, paid leave, parental leave, child care. It's a lot of things. That's a complicated mesh to make sure that people are more equal. Donald Trump does not look at it that way. He thinks corporate tax cuts will raise all boats.
You've just articulated, by the way, the platform of the Harris-Walz campaign. It is about making sure that if you work a full-time job, you can feed your family. By the way, every Republican, every so-called red state that's had a ballot initiative to raise the minimum wage over the last dozen years, those initiatives have passed because people in those red states understand that you can't feed your family on $7.25 an hour. Making sure that people have access to health care. The vice president and Governor Walz want to make sure we continue to expand the Affordable Care Act. We've seen 8 million more people on the exchange over the last 3.5 years, and we can do even more to expand that. They want to make sure, and we've finally taken on the pharmaceutical industry, thanks to President Biden and Vice President Harris, in making sure we can negotiate the prices of prescription drugs. Just announced 10 more drugs the other day, and the vice president is committed to making sure we are continuing those efforts. The child care tax credit. We know how to reduce childhood poverty in this country. Why do I say that? Because we did it in 2021, reducing childhood poverty by 40%. We know how to grow the union movement, and President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Governor Walz have been doing this, making sure that we are providing opportunities to organize, making sure you have a National Labor Relations Board that protects workers. You saw the former President Trump, talking about, you can fire workers who are on strike. No, you can't, Allie. That's illegal. And it really highlights a key difference between Vice President Harris and Donald Trump. She's going to protect workers, and he is not. We need to invest in making sure that people have access to quality, affordable housing. And the Vice President has articulated a very muscular plan to build even more housing, to make sure that housing is affordable at every level. And by giving a child care tax credit to those with newborns, again, putting more money in people's pockets. That's what the dignity of work is about. And the reason so many corporate leaders understand this, and I spoke to a lot of them, Allie, when I was labor secretary, and I continue to speak to them. They want to retain their workers and paying them well and giving them paid leave and giving them benefits. That's how you do it. We in this country are going to accomplish for paid leave what Barack Obama and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and others were able to accomplish in the ACA. The next frontier of progress is indeed paid leave, and that's a big part of the agenda of
and it's not
the
a
Vice
mystery.
President and Governor Wallace. He showed that you can do it in Minnesota.
That's right. I was going to say he showed you can do it in Minnesota, and it's not a mystery because we've seen it in every other developed nation. I mean, it can be done, and it entirely works. Tom, good to see you as always. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Tom Perez is the senior advisor to President Biden and is the former Secretary of Labor under President Obama.